your charm. Let's go into some other characteristics of a counterfeit. Another thing, they are also very calculated. A counterfeit is very calculated. They are very strategic in their moves. And what a lot of people don't realize is their strategic moves can start long before they've even literally or officially interacted with you personally. They will observe you from afar. They will watch your social media. They will watch you from afar. If it's somebody at work, they may, watch you and observe you there. If it's somebody at church, they may, watch you from afar off, and they notice a lot of things. And I talk about them, very specifically in the books. I won't get all into it, but some of the things that they do is definitely observe you from afar before they make their official approach. So by watching you, they can tell who your friends are. They are evaluating how you dress and what that gives off. If they're looking at you on social media, they'll watch what type of pictures you post. That's why you have to be very careful what you post. If you're going through, let's say, for instance, a hard breakup, don't post every post on your page about heartbreak and how you're trying to get over somebody, or how, all men are dogs, or how all women are unfaithful and manipulative. Be very careful about what you put out about yourself on social media, because counterfeits come with a strategic plan. They're very calculated. And so, they can watch you from afar to say, she seems like the type that would like this or would like that, or she has a kid, so now I know I have to act like, I like kids. Or if they see you at church, she congregates with this person and that person, so that tells me a lot about her. Or, I noticed this and I noticed that, because they're very calculated sometimes before they even approach you. And in this age of social media, where people are putting everything about themselves out there for people to see, we're putting out what we eat. When we buy a new outfit, people know. When we have a breakup, people know. You put relationships up on social media too fast, and then all of a sudden we don't see you with that person anymore, so we can kind of put it together that you guys have broken up. There's a lot of things that you put out there, and we're giving place to the enemy, because people with this deceptive spirit that want to come in and target you have a lot to go off of. They don't even have to do much research, because you're putting it all out there. And then what they do, which is my next point, what they do is they do a process, a strategic process called assessing and mirroring. It's a psychological term, assessing and mirroring. The assessing is what I just talked about, the observation. They're getting all their data on you without sometimes you even knowing, or in the very beginning stages when you go out on your first couple of dates, or when you first exchange numbers. They want to find out all this information about you, what you like, where you like to go, what was going on in your last relationship. And without you knowing, you're sharing and sharing and sharing, and they're collecting and collecting. They're taking all these notes on you. Oh, so she said, in her last relationship, he was abusive, or in his last relationship, she cheated. So she's really sensitive about faithfulness. So now I have to really play up to him, how faithful I am. How, hey, my ex cheated on me too. So I empathize with you. You're telling them all your likes. You're telling them all your dislikes. And so all they have to do, if they have this deceptive personality, is listen to you. And a lot of times with counterfeits, what you'll notice is they do a lot of information gathering from you, but they don't do a lot of information sharing about themselves. And especially, a lot of times with women, we say we like the strong, quiet type, the silent type, the mysterious type. But sometimes that's not good, because sometimes they're quiet and silent and mysterious because they have a lot to hide. And what a pathological liar will do, and a lot of counterfeits or pathological liars will do, is they would rather not share information than have to share a lot of different versions of information to get caught up in their lies, because that's how you catch them. So you can't catch them when they're not sharing much. So, be very careful when you are in the formative stages of getting to know someone, that you don't overshare information. You give enough. You put some things out there because they do have to get to know you, and that's what dating is. It's collecting data, but be very strategic on what data you share and how fast you share that. Do not go on these first dates and give your whole life story about your broken past, your tough childhood, the fact that you got mishandled in this way, and how every man you've ever been with has done this or that to you, or how every woman that you tried to be good to has manipulated you out of money. You would be surprised how many men I talk to and how women are manipulating them because they think, oh, well, he's a good guy. He told me he bought this for his last girl, so maybe I can get this out of him too. It goes both ways. Be very strategic on how much you share, and make sure you get a check in your spirit that it's okay to share certain things, because with a counterfeit, they will do a lot of information gathering, but very little information sharing. And when you really think about it, you're like, well, I don't really know much about him. I don't really know much about her. I've been telling them everything. And what they'll do is, like I'm talking about, this psychological process of assessing and mirroring, where they assess everything about you and then they mirror back to you what it is that you're saying that you want. And so here you are thinking that you've met your soulmate because you have so much in common. But it's not that you have so much in common. It's that you shared everything that you want. You shared everything that you like and that you dislike. And all they had to do was feed it back to you. So it's not a soulmate. It's mirroring. And you're not going to know if they're authentic or not until you give it some time for God to give you the discernment to decipher the spirit by which they're operating in, if it's authentic or if it's not. So the thing about counterfeits is that you have to give time to test their authenticity. It's no different than a counterfeit, $20 bill. It's made to look exactly like the same thing. And even with the really good counterfeit dollar bills, they're even made to kind of feel like the real thing. But it's not until you hold that counterfeit bill up to a certain light that you can look and see that it has different markings than what it should. And this is what you have to do with people while you're dating in this day and age. You can't just go by how it looks. You can't even go by how it feels, because if your desire is for a mate, it may dilute your discernment. So you have to hold someone up to the light. And what do I mean by that? As an analogy, you have to hold them up to the word of God and what it says that a man of integrity, a man of valor, a woman of virtue is supposed to be, and see if they can be held up to that light and pass the test of authenticity. But that takes time and it takes discernment. Everything that glitters ain't good. Everything that glitters ain't God. And he may look perfect and she may look perfect, but are they authentic? And discernment is going to expose their authenticity. So, counterfeits also operate, like we said, in an art of deception. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because it is an art to them. They have mastered it. They have made it an art on how to deceive women. This is how you find people who have had so many, women after them, so many men after them, and everyone's caught up on them. Everyone's, head over heels for them. This is how you find, different men that have harems of women who are all, just head over heels for him. All of them think that they are the one for him. All of them are in love with him. All of them are saying, God said you're my husband, because he's charmed and bewitched all of them and got them in this haze, this cloud of infatuation. And they're sharing everything about themselves. But when it's time for him to share, he's very tight-lipped, because he doesn't want to say too much, because it's in revealing too much that he can be found out or she can be found out. This goes both ways. This isn't just about men. And so you have to assess, you have to say, well, what do I really know about this person? Does he ever share any feelings? Does he share anything personal? Does he share anything vulnerable? I'm putting my heart and soul out here, but he's very quiet. And they'll say things like, well, I'm just a quiet type of guy. I don't get into all of that. That's not important right now. When it's time, we'll talk about those things. And you keep believing it, but you better make sure that you're not oversharing and that they're withholding, because they may not be operating in a spirit that is authentic. It's an art to them, and they know exactly what to say. They know how much to give to keep you holding on, but they know just what not to say so that they can't be found out. They know how to give you just enough attention to make you feel special, but they never fully commit. So you can't be sure, am I that special? Am I really your woman? Am I your boyfriend? What am I really? If she won't tell you, hey, we're just friends, but she treats you like you may be more than a friend, then you have to read that vagueness is an indicator. No definition is an indicator. Not wanting a title is an indicator. People that come with the spirit of authenticity don't want confusion. They want clarity. Men who want you want clarity. They want definition. They want a title because they don't want it to be confused. That one is all me right there. So anytime it's vague, you need to be leery because definition and clarity comes from an authentic place. But when it's somebody who is just always vague, they never want any defined terms. Oh, let's just see how it goes. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see where God takes this. They'll throw God in there real quick. But sometimes you have to use common sense. You got to say, well, listen, now, if we both been speaking to the Lord about this, it shouldn't take 6 months to a year for you to figure out if you even want to be official with me. I'm not saying we have to rush down the aisle. I don't advocate rushing towards marriage or any of that. But just to know where you stand with someone shouldn't take months and months and months and years for them to figure out if you're seeking a word from the Lord. Because think about it this way. Why would God withhold an answer on what you should be doing with a person romantically and want you to be in confusion, want there to be no terms, no definition to it, when God is saying that he's not a God of confusion? So God promotes clarity. So you both people can't authentically be seeking God about a relationship and he not speak at some point. And so if someone's telling you, I haven't gotten a word from the Lord yet, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, he still hasn't gotten a word. That's something that you need to question. Okay, now we're going into something that, we have to talk about is that even believers can be deceivers. Because a lot of times, I'm a life coach and a counselor, and most of the people that I'm talking to about their counterfeit encounters are not from unsaved people. This is from dating within the church. This is from dating quote unquote fellow Christians, which is sad. And so what happens is we have this assumption that because I met this person in church, or because this person said they're a Christian, or because I saw this person reading the Bible, or let's take it even a step further, because this person is in leadership at my church, I thought I could trust them romantically. And so what I always say is, don't take the title that someone has spiritually as an indicator that you should just trust them immediately romantically. The Bible says to guard your heart above all things. And that applies to fellow Christians as well, because we're still dealing with people here. There are counterfeits in the congregation. There's snakes in the sanctuary. And you need discernment. It doesn't matter if you met them on the pulpit. You better use discernment. There are predators in the pulpit. And this isn't speaking bad about the church, but this is the realness. This is real. It's the truth that's going to set us free. And a lot of people are broken, have had their hearts broken by people that they met in the pews of the church. And so you can't just give this card, this green light to someone that you meet in church because they're supposed to be a quote unquote man of God or a woman of God, or because you met them in the congregation, or you met them at a ministry event, or you met them at some gospel concert, or because you guys sing on the choir together. You have to use discernment all the way around. Discernment applies to everybody, because counterfeits, that's where the counterfeits can go. You have to think about this. Let's take, for example, if you're a woman and you're in church, you have to realize that all the men in that church are listening to the same things that you're listening to about waiting for a Boaz and what type of man of God you should be preserving yourself for. So it's very easy for someone with a deceptive spirit to just emulate what they know you're waiting for. All they have to do is take their notes. Okay, looking for a Boaz. So I got to do this, got to do that. Got it. So all I got to do is call her, act like I like to pray all the time. So on my first phone call for her, I'll make sure that we pray at the end of the conversation. That'll really get her. I'll make sure I throw a couple of Bible studies in there. That'll really get her. And you fall so in love with who they're pretending to be spiritually that you let yourself be way too open romantically. And sometimes, let's keep it real, even sexually. Because they'll convince you that, hey, I'm going to marry you. Or they'll convince you that, hey, God knows that we have a flesh. I'm a man. I know I'm a man of God, but I'm still a man. And they'll start making you feel like, hey, well, maybe I still have to satisfy his flesh. They like to say, well, it ain't, you're too deep. It's not spiritual all the time. It's physical. It's sexual out here. I have desires. I have needs. No, you have a spirit. You have a demon. And you need to be able to discern it.